Hello YouTube. I have been thinking about doing my own YouTube channel for a while now. Obviously, I finally decided to go through with this, so welcome to my first video. If you just want to get to the content and skip the housekeeping, I have a marker for that on the timeline after I upload this. So first, a little bit about myself. I'm not an expert in anime, even though this will be related to anime. I only watch some shows occasionally. I am more of a jack of all trades kind of person, so I'm into a lot of things at the same time, which will be reflected through my videos as I reference things from all over the place. I haven't seen another YouTube channel like this. Hopefully this is actually a positive point. I'll talk more about myself in a future video. For now, we'll get back into the topic of realism in fictional stories. The reason I choose this topic is because I can see that a lot of my future topics will attract, hopefully, comments that will be answered in this one. So yes, I'm kind of doing this backwards, but I think it's better to have it at the ready beforehand. Also, I have personally encountered situations where I need to explain this concept to someone I'm talking with, but there's just no website or video I could point to. Because as far as I'm aware, I'm the only one pushing this idea around. The situation I'm talking about here is, of course, when someone talks about realism in an anime or actually any other fictional story, only to be dismissed with something to the effect of, "It's an anime, it's supposed to be unrealistic." The idea is attractive at first glance. Realism and fiction seem to conflict each other. My personal view and the point of this video is that there is a confusion going on here. The things being questioned is in fact not realism, but logical consistency of the story that is being questioned. The reason people like to confuse consistency with realism is, I think, quite simple. That's because real life is always logically consistent. You may not understand how everything works, for example, like how Trump is able to run for president, but nobody suspects that there is magic going on behind the scenes. We know there has to be a logical explanation. Basically, realism always implies consistency, but consistency does not always require realism. To give you an example, the excellent anime Kill la Kill, it has zero realism, right? I mean, it's a story about how skimpy clothing makes people stronger, and the more clothes you wear, the more evil you become. However, without spoiling the fantastic plot twist, it all makes sense within its own internal universe. Compare that to something with a much more realistic setting, like Sword Art Online. Never mind the in-game stuff. I'm just talking about when they're in real life. What about the idea that people kept playing those Matrix-like games even after thousands of people died in the first season? Even though the story takes place in a world that closely resembles future Japan, yet the world doesn't behave like it does in the real world due to a lack of consistency. If you're going to have characters that are like real people in real life, you better also have them behave like real people in real life. And real people don't volunteer to have themselves completely paralyzed with a machine that has a record of killing thousands of people. I won't get into all the inconsistencies in SAO as it has already been done by others. Good video, Digibro. I will instead use another anime people have actually praised quite a lot, but I find to be not so good due to all the inconsistencies. And that show is No Game No Life, another entry in the nerd gets summoned to an alternate world where his useless nerd skills suddenly become super useful genre. I'll just talk about this one specific inconsistency. Here you can see that the main characters are supposed to be two physically normal people living in modern Japan, except that they are really good at chess and that other MMO they showed at the beginning. At this point, everything can still be said to be realistic, which is not necessarily good but not bad either. But then the show seems to be suggesting that Shilo is not just good at chess, no, she has apparently solved chess because she claims that chess is no different from tic-tac-toe, which is a game simple enough that anyone with normal intelligence can solve. But didn't you say that a show can be unrealistic, but as long as it is consistent, it is okay? Well, I did say that, but there comes a point when your proposal can be so exaggerated that it starts to conflict with the other settings in your story, creating inconsistency. We just have to take a moment to appreciate the magnitude of this disgusting exaggeration of solving chess. Since the show is set in modern Japan, we can assume that people generally work like they do in real life in a physical sense, and most laws of nature work as they do in real life. Well, even though the human brain is incredibly complex and contains about 100 billion neurons, that's only 10 to the 11 neurons, or about the number of stars in our galaxy. A bigger galaxy may contain 10 times as much stars at about 10 to the 12th. Multiply that by 10 again and you have the number of cells in your body. Multiply that by 100 and we are already at the number of neural connections in the brain, which is 10 to the 15th. And then multiply that by 10,000 at 10 to the 19th, you get the number of insects on the planet. Multiply that by 100, you get the numbers of grains of sand on the entire planet. The number we have now, which is 1,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000, may seem extraordinarily large, but it's only half as long as the number of possible states you can legally play in chess. And since the game is a few hundred moves long, that gives us a number that is 3 times longer than that. That's the number of all possible games that has ever been and will ever be played. That's the number of games you have to look through in order to solve chess. Now it should be obvious that every single law of nature is in conflict with the existence of an intelligence capable of solving chess, making this kind of a setting inconsistent. But since I'm a generous god, let's say we ignore this. Just pretend it's part of the setting and we don't think about it too much. However, the show just won't give up, because then in the next scene, Sola says something incredibly stupid yet again. First, he says, computers always play the perfect move. No, we don't have a computer that have solved chess, so they can't possibly play the perfect move. And then he says, that's why you can beat a computer. Wait, what? So he's saying that Shilo can beat a computer that can play perfectly? Like he can beat a computer that has solved chess? How does that work? When a game is solved, it means you have an optimal strategy that will force a certain outcome. Usually it's a win or sometimes a tie depending on the game and who's going first. For example, this is the optimal strategy for playing first in tic-tac-toe. It gives you the optimal play for every legal response Circle makes. Yes, including the stupid ones where he just does nothing and lets you win. The point is, An optimal strategy in a solved game contains the best response to every possible response. So there's no way to be the computer that plays optimal strategy, even if you also have the optimal strategy on the other side. You will just keep playing the same optimal game that leads to a tie over and over again. Another problem here is that Sola determines that the opponent isn't playing perfectly just because it blocked its own pieces. This makes no sense. The goal of the game is to win a round, so it is very possible that some moves involve blocking your own pieces. These moves could only seem like mistakes to people who haven't yet solved the game and couldn't see their long-term implications. Okay, that's about everything I wanted to say in this video, making the distinction between realism and consistency. If you found it interesting, please like it, subscribe, share with your friends, all the YouTube stuff. I actually have a whole series of videos planned on that show, No Game, No Life, and how a lot of it totally makes no sense. From the 10 rules of the game world to basically every game being played in the show. If you're interested in seeing that, please tell me in the comments. Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you next video.